Thanks so much for listening to No Lions Here with me, Big Panda.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to No Lions Here. My name is Big Panda, and I'm a recovering sex addict. Real quick, before we jump into the episode, want to get you guys caught up on where I've been, kind of what I've had going on in my life over the last couple weeks. Just want to go ahead and plug the socials. Go check us out. If you haven't checked out our Instagram or YouTube, it is no_lions_here, posting full video episodes. And if you're joining us on YouTube and this is your first introduction to No Lions Here, go check out the full catalog with all of the episodes over on Spotify. Again, that's No Lions Here. Go make sure to go give us a check. Like I'm trying to post videos basically every day, as far as like the short clips and things like that go. So definitely go check those out. Go give us a like, a subscribe, and just, you know what, go check it out. Just trying to do what I can to spread the message. Yeah, happy to be back in the studio. Been a couple weeks since I've recorded. I've been here, but I just haven't really recorded. Last week, there was a reason. Last week, I actually went up to Michigan to see some family. It was actually my dad's side of the family. Went up there for a cousin's wedding. Now, in doing that, originally, I was really surprised to get the invite for this wedding, right? Like, growing up, my dad did not like where he came from. So once he got out of Michigan, we never went back up there. We would always spend time with my mom's side of the family. And so I always really enjoyed going to see that side of the family, my dad's side of the family, because we had a lot of cousins up there that were around my age, and it was always a lot of fun going up there. So I had the opportunity, got the invite to the wedding. It's been 10 years since I've been up there. So I was like, you know what? I want to go. I really want to if I got to drive by myself and go, that's fine. So it turns out my dad also wanted to go. I got an aunt with cancer, so he wanted, and it's been a while since he's been up there too. So he wanted to go. So he said, hey, this is what we're going to do. I was only going to stay for a couple days. I needed to get back because I had a hockey game. So he was like, well, hey, I'll drive us up, and then you can fly back. So that's basically what we did. Now, going into the trip, my dad in my life has been not a constant over the last, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years or so, maybe even longer than that, honestly. And so it was like I don't spend a lot of like alone time with him. When I see him, it's in passing. He'll come over to the house, help my mom with things like I don't want to help with. So I'm like really grateful for that, and that, you know what, I'm okay being around him. If you're familiar with the podcast, you know that there were things that happened growing up that he did that were not good. And so I find myself in this interesting boat of, like, I don't hate the dude. I definitely have my resentments. I have my things that, I do, and I don't like using that word, but there are definitely things that he did that, that definitely set us up for not good, I'll say. Yeah. And so I find myself in this weird boat because, like, half of my brothers don't talk to him, and then the other 3 of us are like, yeah, he's around. I'll talk to him. We don't talk a whole lot. So there's this conflict in me that's like, okay, while I understand, a little bit more about like why he did what he did, right? I don't justify it, and I don't condone it. Like, what he did was wrong, 100%. And it had a ripple effect that really, like, kind of ripped through the family. It was more than a ripple effect, really. It was more like a tidal wave through the family. So, but also at the same time, like, I want a relationship with my dad, too. So, it's just kind of like that rock and a hard place. And nobody in my family, like, gives me any kind of crap for still talking to him or having any kind of relationship with him. So that's more or less, like, in my own head. And as you guys all know from the show, I'm very much in my head. I very much overanalyze things. and like I carry what other people may think, right? Because I don't even know if they think that, or at least no one says anything. So I carry around all these things that other people may be saying, right? I don't know if they're saying it at all. So, it's like, okay, he's not a constant in my life. Hasn't been, more or less like a passerby. Like if I need something, if I need him to take care of something for me, like if my mom's out of town, and I'm at work, he'll come over and feed the dog. And I'm really grateful for that. But alone in the car for 8 hours, like you don't know. Well, is this going to be awkward? Is it going to be weird? I just didn't know, right? I had no idea what to expect out of this trip. And so, it was actually like the drive up was actually like very pleasant. It wasn't too bad at all. We definitely talked. Like I even showed him, stuff around the podcast and the videos I'm putting out. And, this was probably a few months back. Yeah, actually, I really don't know how long it was. Probably a few months. But, I did let him know that, like, hey, I'm doing this podcast. I'm sharing my journey. And that entails a childhood and what happened and what you did. And, I'm not asking your permission to post this and go more public with it, right? Because, again, now we're out there. We're on YouTube. Like, this was always the plan. So it wasn't so much like asking his permission, but more or less just being courteous and saying, hey, look, like I'm putting this out there and I wanted you to know about it. And, his response was like, whatever you got to do to heal. He's not a real in-depth guy. And I can really relate to that. Like I am totally like a carbon copy of my father and my father's side. Like I really don't know if I have much of my mom in me. Now my older brother is a carbon copy of my mom. I'm the second child, so I'm my dad. Through and through I'm my dad. And growing up, or not growing up, but later on within the last couple of years, my mom's told me that my dad suffered from anxiety, and I really suffer from anxiety. So there's a lot of similars there with him. So going up there, I showed him some stuff around the podcast, and we had some pretty good conversations. They weren't super deep, but they were good conversations. We were engaging, and there was conversation there. It wasn't this awkward like, okay, I'm just gonna stare out the window the whole time, or okay, now let me act like I'm sleeping, because guys, I can't sleep in cars. That just doesn't work for me. I'm 6'2". I don't sleep well. I don't. So I tried, but and we had some good talks. And I split the driving with him, and we went up, and there was a dilemma though. Like the dilemma was, I was like, hey, let's get an Airbnb, and he was like, yeah, okay, that's fine, I'll pay for it. Like that's fine, find us one. So I found us one. Well, then he came back and was like, hey, I want to stay. My aunt said, hey, we have extra beds. You guys can stay with us. Now, something else about me, I think I've shared this on the podcast before, is like I don't do well with like other people's pets. It's not that I don't do well or I dislike them. There's just a fear there for me. There's a fear there for me that someone else is going to have a dog and the dog's going to bite me. Basically, I catastrophize it. Like that dog's going to bite me and it's going to be the worst thing ever and I'm going to get mauled. And so I texted my dad and I was like, hey, do they have pets? I don't really want to mess with other people's pets. I don't really want to mess with it. And he was like, yeah, they got a small dog. And so I was like, okay. It was a small dog, tiny dog. And I don't know, I kind of struggled with like, okay, I don't really want to stay there. So what should we do? I kind of want to like, I want to be an adult and say, no, you know what? I really don't want to do that. I think we should stick with the original plan. And, I always thought about it, prayed about it. And, I said, hey, okay, you know what? I can cancel the Airbnb, and if I do it before this time, then we'll get the full refund back. And after that time, it'll be a half. So I was like, I can get it. I can cancel it and get our full refund back. So I think the deadline was like, I don't even, it was like a Saturday it was a Saturday, I think. And I had to have it canceled by 4 p.m. that day. Well, it was 3 o'clock my time. I'm in the central time zone. And I was like, okay, I still got time. Let me talk this out with some people. And then I even talked to my dad, and I decided, I was like, you know what? No, I think it's best. I think that it would be okay if we stayed with my aunt. She's got cancer, and I haven't seen that side of the family. So you know what? I'm only gonna be there for 2 days, 2 nights. So you know what? Let's just stay with her. That way we can get some FaceTime in with the family. And again, it's only 2 days. It'll be okay. Well, I went. It was about 3:30. I was like, cool. I still got time. I'm gonna cancel the Airbnb. So I went to go cancel it, and we only got half the money back. And I told my dad right away. I was like, hey, I'm really sorry. Like, I messed up. It didn't specify 4 p.m. Eastern or Central, so I guess it was on Eastern time, since going to Michigan was Eastern time. And what I was not expecting out of this situation was how I would feel knowing that, like, my dad asked me to do something and I messed up. I made a mistake. It was an honest mistake, and I messed up. And I can totally trace that back to my childhood with any task that my dad had me do, right? Like, whether it would be cut the grass, wash the car, wash the bathroom. Like, if I didn't do it the right way, there really was no conversation around, okay, this is where you messed up. It was more or less he just kind of jumped in. It was either do it again, or he just kind of jumped in and took over, and we just kind of watched, like, well, what did we do wrong? There were no conversations around this, no teaching at all, no coaching at all. And as a little kid, as a little boy especially, like, you want your dad's approval. So, man, that, like, on the other side of that, like, that really, like, really spun me up. I was really kind of surprised. And looking back on it now, like, I'm not necessarily so surprised, because over the last couple of years, I've been living with my mom, and I've been dealing with face to face with, like, the mom issues that I have. And so, not saying that I've minimized, like, the dad issues, because, like, I know that they're there, but he's not around enough for me to be, like, face to face and bump up against these issues. So it was really interesting to see all of that. Like, that, again, my dad asked me to do something, and I did not do it to the best of my ability, like I told him I would. And, like, that brought up, man, just a whole bunch of, like, guilt and not being good enough. And, like, like, really, it was really difficult. And again, very surprising too. I was not necessarily expecting that at all. I don't know really what I was expecting. I don't know if I had any, but it was, yeah, it was tough. That was kind of like a shock to the system a little bit. So anyway, we get up to my aunt's house, and my aunt's there. I got a couple uncles there, and it was just so great to see everybody, and getting up there, I knew that I didn't want to share too much about my recovery, right? Like, I wasn't going to go into the weeds and the nitty gritty detail around, like, I'm a sex addict and I'd have a podcast and anything like that, because there's things that I discuss on here that, at one point in time in my life, I thought we're always going to stay private, and they were always going to stay with me. So, I wasn't sure how it would be taken, understood. Like, my dad grew up very Catholic, and so his side of the family is big drinkers. Like, as soon as we got there, like, what are you guys drinking? What are you guys drinking? And I told my uncle, I was like, I'll have a ginger beer. And he was like, what are you going to mix that with? And I was like, nothing. He kind of was like, oh, okay. And I was like, yeah, I've actually been sober for 2 years. Actually, that reminds me, tomorrow, which would be the 7th of October, is my 2-year sobriety date from cocaine and alcohol. So, man, I'm really proud of myself for that. Sorry, little sidestep there. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Like the last 2 years are like really flown by around all that stuff, and I gotta be honest, like the urges to drink or use really aren't there. And I mean, I would be lying if I said that the urges didn't ever come up. However, it's like really easy to push those urges to the side and just be like, you know what? No, I really don't want to go down that road. Like, especially when it comes to Coke. Like, first off, I don't even know who I would get it from. I have none of those contacts. I am not associated with anybody that would make it easy for me to get anything. So that's really good. The drinking, again, I was a really big drinker anyway. I was really only a big drinker when it came to like, okay, I'm going to do cocaine. So 2 year sobriety. By the time this gets put out, it'll be a couple days after that. But yeah, 2 year sobriety. I'm really proud of myself for that. I feel really good about that. It's a good reminder. I'm really glad I reminded myself of that. So we're up there and they're like, hey, what have you been up to? What are you doing? And I was like, oh, like I think my aunt was like, so what, you just don't really like to drink a whole lot? And I was like, no, actually I don't drink at all. I'm actually 2 years sober. And it was kind of interesting. The temperature of the room around that was kind of like almost like first initial reaction was like, okay. And then it turned into, oh, good for you. Congratulations. And then, there was the talk of like, well, what are you doing for work right now? Well, I am working, but however, I am going to school to become a recovery coach. And my aunt was like, what's that? And I was like, well, I help people early on in recovery, to try to kind of find their way. And again, I'm not too surprised that there really wasn't like, there wasn't like a red carpet rolled out for me or anything, but they were really happy for me. And actually, it was really cool. So the next day, me and my aunt were talking, and this is my dad's sister. So we were talking, and she was like, tell me more about, your recovery and what you're doing, and just, sharing with her just the knowledge and the things that I've learned about myself over the last 2.5 years, right? Guys, like I know myself more than I ever have before. Like I'm in the best spot mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally that I've ever been in my life. And sure, like I have bad days, I have really good days. But even those bad days, like I'm still super aware and in touch with what's going on with me. I just don't always necessarily know how to like navigate smoothly out of those places. And I didn't overshare, right? I didn't eventually be like, well, I'm also a sex addict. That's kind of like my main thing. And, I didn't really want to go into that. And I didn't feel like I was being duplicitous in any way, shape, or form around that. Since that is something that I keep a little bit closer to my chest. And I don't necessarily open up with that like right off the bat, really when I'm talking to anybody. And it was really cool. We got on the topic of parenting, and she shared that her kids were in therapy, and they had conversations around like the way they were brought up and how like sometimes some of the things that she hears from them, there's one of the big things that we talked about was like there's two sides to every story, right? Like the parent has one idea of how they're parenting and how it's perceived by the children, and then there's the children's view, right? And so I've just been stuck in this children's view because I am not a parent, so I haven't had to like go through those, right? And this is all focused on my mom and what I've been dealing with. And she was like, some of this stuff, it is hard to hear. She's like, however, it is like also really healing too, to hear that like that is how my parenting was received. And she was like, I didn't know that, right? Like I was just doing the best that I could. And I validated her in that and confirmed like, yeah, like, in everything in all the work that I've been doing on myself and seeing how much of this relates back to my childhood, like by no means am I ever like blaming my parents for anything. Like, again, they were doing the best that they could with what they had. That just got passed down from their parents, who they got that from their parents, right? Like, it's really interesting if you ever sit down and like go back through your family tree and see what eras your parents, grandparents, great grandparents, their parents, how they grew up and what eras, like what time frames they grew up in. I remember first day at BAI, we did this, and it really made a lot of sense because as times have changed, there's been different mindsets in society that are their views on mental health, their views on trauma. Like, there's all these different views. I feel like now we're finally in a space where, like, mental health is really important, trauma is really big, people are talking about stuff. Whereas, my parents grew up in that day and age where, like, you don't talk about that stuff. Suck it up. Men don't cry. Men don't talk about their feelings. Men are supposed to provide, protect. That's their role. The woman is there to nurture the family, like, and even more so, back from their parents, even more so. So it was really interesting, talking about parenting with her. And then we got on the top of anxiety, and it turns out, and like my dad was there, and her husband, my uncle, was there, and we talked a lot about anxiety and how anxiety really runs in my dad's family. It really, my aunt suffers from anxiety. She also has ADHD, which I've kind of been questioning. Maybe I have some of that as well. Like, now I need to go in before I like self-diagnose myself. I need to, go through the proper channels to see if that is actually a thing. But some of the stuff that she was describing to me, I could really relate to. Really, really relate to it, just especially around the anxiety and, things like that. So, it was, and it just, another thing around like seeing that side of the family. Since I take so much after that side of the family, whenever I'm up there, I see a lot of myself in these other family members. And I feel, I don't know, like, not that I don't feel not included on the other side of the family. There's just this, like, I don't know. I feel like that side of the family, I get my dad's side of the family more than my mom's side of the family. I feel like I can relate to my dad's side of the family more than I can relate to my mom's side of the family because I am so much like them. And seeing this now after all the work that I put into myself over the last 2.5 years, like, seeing that now, I feel that now even more. And also something that I see is that, like, I've really held a resentment to my resentment. I've held a resentment against my dad for not taking us up there more as kids. Like, that's something that, like, I've really held against him and been upset that we haven't done that more with that side of the family. So that was kind of, interesting to, you know, come to light, be aware of, and also just to be able to, like, have those conversations with my aunt and feel like she totally understood and I, like, totally understood where she was coming from. Like, it was really cool to be able to connect to her in that way and have that type of conversation that wasn't just so much surface level. So that was like really interesting. And it was interesting. We were driving to the ceremony, and it was me and my dad, and then my aunt and my uncle, and a couple things happened during that car ride that were really interesting to me. One was, my aunt was sharing that, like, she felt like she couldn't share things with her parents, so she would just bottle them up. That sounds like me. Um, Sounds like my dad too. And then my uncle chimed in, and he was like, "Yeah, that's why you have cancer right now." And my dad was kind of like, "Oh, stop that." And my aunt was like, "No, that's really true. When we hold all this trauma in, it has such adverse effects on our health, like our physical health. Not only our mental health, but also our physical health. It can manifest in sickness and disease in us." Um, and I'm not saying that that's the full reason why she has it, but like, I think that there is some substance there, and that to some extent, like, yeah, that I think that is part of it. And another thing was my dad was telling the story about me growing up and how whenever we went to church and it was time for Sunday school, my dad would take me to Sunday school, and he shared this, and I don't necessarily remember this, but he said, "Man, as soon as He's like, I'd drop him off, and then I'd go back to the seat to sit down with my mom. And he said, by the time I got back to the seat, Alex had already broken out of Sunday school and made it back to the seat before me. I don't know how he did it, but he did it almost every time. And then they would just march me right back to Sunday school. And he said, you know what, Alex? I need to publicly apologize for that. He was like, we should have just let you sit with us. He was like, you probably weren't getting anything out of Sunday school. You just wanted to be with us. And he said, you know what? I apologize for that. I didn't know. I should have just let you sit with us. And I don't know. That was really touching. That I was not expecting that. I was not asking for that. But I was really touched by that. Because I also did that in school up until about 6th grade too. I just always threw fits. I think I've told I've told one story that was very traumatic for me. And he made the point. He's like, school, that's one thing, right? Like, you got to go to school. Totally understand that. So that was really interesting. And again, I was like really touched by that. Really, really touched by that. And the one thing that was really cool for me was I took my recovery with me. Like, I was connected while I was there. The wedding was on a Friday. We got up there on a Thursday. Friday morning, I got up. I went for a 4-mile run. I was taking phone calls. I was making phone calls. I even meditated at one point in time because I had a lot of anxiety going on. I was praying, still hitting my knees every morning, every night. I felt really good around taking my recovery with me, which I haven't been the best at doing when it comes to travel. Like, sometimes when I travel, there's these thoughts of, okay, well, when I'm in my hometown, there's certain, when I act out, there are certain apps that I use that I like to stay pretty secretive on. And when I travel, I'm like, okay, I'm not in my hometown. I don't know anybody here. We can be a little bit more, I don't got to be so private with it. I can kind of put my face out there. But, it doesn't matter because, I don't know anybody here. And so that's been a really big challenge for me in traveling over the last couple of years. But you know what? I didn't do any of that. There are thoughts, absolutely. I'd be lying if I said that I didn't have urges and I didn't have thoughts of wanting to do that. However, I didn't. And I know that that's totally was caused by anxiety and just being in a new place. So I didn't do any of that. And so I'm really proud of myself for that. Just really, really proud of myself for how I handled myself. And I took my recovery with me, which I don't always do, right? Sometimes it's easy. I use this metaphor. I have this chair in my bedroom that so I've got a chair and then my hamper, right? And, the dirty clothes goes in the hamper, and then the clothes that aren't dirty enough for the hamper, but I don't want to put them back in the drawer, they'll just get tossed onto my chair and they'll just get left there until it's either time to do laundry or hang them up. And so sometimes my recovery, I can treat my recovery like that and throw it on the chair and then just leave it there and not take it with me. But so I'm just really proud of myself for taking my recovery with me. And yeah, that felt really good to do. And just to, stay on top of things, and not necessarily because I felt like I had to, but there were things that were coming up, anxiety, and that I wanted to try to manage. I didn't want it to just get its hooks in me and let it run my weekend. I really didn't want that to happen. And so, Jeff and I touched on this, throwing tools at things don't always bring that, that instant gratification that I'm always looking for, and that I just want this to go away, so let me throw a tool at it. It was more or less just trying to manage it and not let those voices get too loud. So, okay, so what can I do to make sure that those voices don't get too loud? And for me, that's practicing my recovery. That's taking care of myself, listening to myself, and giving myself the things that I need. So again, really, really proud of myself. Went to the wedding, went to the reception, got to see a bunch of cousins and aunts and uncles that I haven't seen in a long time, and So it was just great. It was just really great to see them. Something else really interesting came up, and it was we were at the dinner table at the reception, and my uncle asked me, he's like, "Hey, where are you living?" And I told him the town, town that I'm from, and he was like, "Oh, so you live with your dad?" And I was like, "No, I don't." And he was like, kind of taken back a little bit by that. And he was like, "What, you don't live with your dad?" And I was like, "No, I don't." Nah, and I didn't say I live on my own either, because I don't. And so my uncle sitting next to me was like, he's like, "So what, you live with your mom?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "So what, does your dad have a condo?" And I said, "Yeah, my dad's got his own place." And I leaned over and I said, "Man, I'm kind of starting to realize that my dad hasn't told you guys that my mom and him are separated and they don't live together." And he was like, "No, he hasn't." And I was like, he was like, "Well, I kind of pieced it together, though." He's like, "I noticed that all the pictures your mom posts on social media, that your dad's not in them." He's like, "So I can put two and two together." And I was like, "Yeah, he hasn't told you guys." And he goes, "I know he hasn't." And he goes, "It's not that big of a deal." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. It's not that big of a deal. It's also not so fresh that it would, like, I mean, I don't know, right? Like, I'm not my dad. I'm not in his situation, so I don't want to pass too much judgment onto him, because I'm sure he feels a lot of guilt and shame around that. I'm sure he does. He has to. I mean, why else would you not share that?" So I just thought that was really interesting. And again, like, I can totally relate to that action, or not taking that action. Like, my parents have been split up for, I don't know, close to 10 years now. So I'm just like, man, like, I can really, really relate to that. Like, not wanting to share just, something, and I don't want to call it simple, but, something like that, something with your family that you feel like you can't share with them. I don't know if it's fear of judgment, what people are going to think about you. I don't know. And I never got to, like, address that with him. I kind of wish I would have known that growing up, or going up there with him, because we would have talked about that for sure. I would have brought that up. Like, just tell them, man. Just tell them they're still gonna accept you. They're still gonna love you. Like, you're still their brother. Just tell them. So I thought that was, like, I don't know. I thought that I was kind of caught off guard by that. I just didn't. I didn't expect that to be the case at all. But you know what? It is again, and that's my dad's stuff. So, you know what? I can only really worry about myself, stay in my lane, and you know what, just worry about myself and my recovery. So, and again, I'm just really proud of myself. I keep saying that, but that's very true. And I think that is, like, really important for me to recognize in my recovery, is those types of things, so that I can gain confidence in myself and my abilities and the growth. Like, that's totally, like, something that I can measure. The growth, like, anytime you can measure the growth in recovery, or if you're just working on yourself in your life, like, that's huge, right? Because for me, I can get so clouded in the things that I'm doing wrong, or the things I feel like I'm doing wrong, to where I don't always have that objective view that my sponsor does, or other program friends do, or just other friends in general that say, like, "Hey, man, you're doing really well. Like, good job." Like, I can't always see that in myself. So when I'm on a trip, and again, I'm making phone calls, taking phone calls, going for a run, meditating, praying, like, being vulnerable, like, man, I'm just really, really proud of myself. And so I don't always feel that. So when I feel that, I want to make sure that I do a really good job of, like, acknowledging and validating and honoring myself and the things that I'm doing. Because that is always a good reminder, and that's, like, one of the gifts of recovery, is to be able to do that for yourself. And that I don't always need this outside validation to tell me that I'm doing things right. Like, I can find that in myself now. Now, again, it's not perfect. I don't do it all the time. I'm trying. Let me rephrase that. I'm doing the best I can. And so it's really important for me to notice those and to point those out. So I'm really proud of myself for doing that. So wedding was great. I got to be the DD. My uncle commented on how good of a driver I was, so that's always nice to hear. I do. It's like the little things, guys. It's the little things like that. Um, so coming back home, I was a little nervous because I had two flights I had to catch. I had a connecting in Chicago, then that flew me home. And the way that the airlines have been running, things have been delayed, backed up. So I was really really nervous to travel on that Saturday because I had a hockey game at like 2:30, and my plane was supposed to get in to where I'm from at 10:30 in the morning. So I was like, plenty of time before the game. However, I know things are delayed. Like, what if they're so far delayed that I miss my connecting flight? What if my connecting flight gets canceled and then I'm not going to get home? And I'm basically like leaving my team out to dry. And then all of this too, by the time we got home from the wedding, I got like 2.5 hours of sleep. So luckily though, you know what? I prayed. I gave it up to God. And I just asked God for safe travel, right? Like that's all I wanted. I just wanted to get to where I was going safely and in one piece. And you know what? I had no issues whatsoever. My flights were not delayed. They were on time. I did not miss my connecting flight. Like everything was really really smooth, and really really grateful for that because that some little minor inconvenience around that could have really thrown me off. And I'm getting to the part that did really kind of throw me off. So get back home, got a hockey game. So the game that I had, I was looking at the schedule. This was a few weeks before the game, and I noticed that Patricia's boyfriend was playing right after my game, and it was like like midday game. I think their game was at like 4:00. So I'm like, okay, doing the math here, like, okay, it's a midday game. Her kids aren't going to be at home in bed, so she might be there. There's a very real chance that she is there. So I reached out a couple weeks before the game. I'm in a couple program like group texts, and I threw them out to both the texts. I think there's like between the two, there's 5-6 people in, and I just said, hey guys, I got a hockey game on this day. I'd really like it if some of you can come out and support me. Patricia's boyfriend's playing right after my game. She may be there. I'd love some support, right? And again, another measuring stick of my recovery and where I'm at, like asking for help. It's so important that if I have a need or I need help with something to ask for it. Because I could have easily not asked for it, and I could have easily just not asked for it. But I asked for it. And you know what? My sponsor, Jeff, stepped up. Andy was on the podcast. Go check out that episode. Shameless plug. Woman-Shaped Hole with Andy. I don't remember the number of the episode, but definitely go check that out. Really good episode. Awesome dude. Great guy. Love the dude. He's never seen me play before. So they were both like, hey, we're coming. I was like, awesome. Like I love when people come and watch me play. Little boy stuff. I want to be able to look over and see somebody that I know in the crowd. So they were there, they came, and we lost the game. Okay. And I felt all right around that. Like I felt okay. I can only do so much. I'm only a human being. I'm not a robot. I'm not a professional athlete either, even though sometimes in my head I like to think I am. So, they were there to support, and it was just really good to get out, get some exercise in, make some saves, and it was a good game. My team probably could have gave me a little bit more support, but that's okay. That's a whole other topic that I don't need to worry about right now. So, get done with the game, and I change, and I come out of the locker room. And who's sitting right there? Patricia. And so, it was like my sponsor and Andy were literally standing like right behind her, like probably like 10 feet behind her. Now they don't know who she is, right? They've never seen her before. They've never met her. They don't know who she is. So they're standing 10 feet behind her. I come out. I see her. She does not look over at me. There's no eye contact. Nothing like that at all. I walk right over to him. I give him a hug, and I'm kind of squirrely, like just a little bit, maybe more so in my head than outward physically. However, like I'm like I'm coming out of a game, so there's a lot of adrenaline running, and I'm kind of like, hey, like let's go, like she's here, she's right here, trying to signal. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm making the thumbs. If you're watching on YouTube, I don't need to say for YouTube. So for Spotify, I'm making thumbs like back at myself, like, hey, she's behind me, because she was literally like right behind me. And so they're like, Jeff and Andy are kind of like, what's going on? And I just kind of like turned and just walked out. I was gone. And they kind of followed me out, and they're like, what was that? And I was like, that was her. They're like, oh, her in the red? And I was like, yes, that was Patricia. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah. And I was like, sorry, I didn't want to be super loud. Like, she was definitely within earshot. I was like, I don't. And they were like, okay. Or they're like, and my sponsor said, man, you handled that like probably the best that you could. And I was like, well, I kind of saw it and needed notice that, hey, okay, like I need to get myself out of here just as quickly as I can. So, we went outside, we talked a little bit, and we left. I went home. I showered. My normal meeting, weekly meeting, home group is on Saturday night. So, and even getting home, showering, and then I even like called Andy. Andy lives about an hour away from us, so I knew he was going back home. I knew he was driving, so I was like, okay, I'll give Andy a call, and I'll just I'll thank him, and we'll just catch up. We don't talk on the phone a whole lot, so. I called him, and we talked for probably 30 minutes. And, we talked about the situation, running into her. And I'll be honest, like, in that spot, like, there really wasn't a whole lot coming up for me. There really wasn't. I just kind of assumed, like, okay, like, I'm in an okay spot. Like, let me just, I'm okay, right? So get to the meeting. And there was a retreat going on, so most of the meeting was at the retreat. Well, the lady that was supposed we do speaker meetings every week, so like there's a designated speaker. They share their experience, strength, and hope with the group for about 15-20 minutes, and then we go into our shares. That's how this meeting's kind of ran. Once a month, we'll read out of the big book. And so he was like, oh, she's at the retreat, so we have no speaker tonight, so I'm going to ask somebody to speak. And normally, so this happened before in meetings, and I would get a lot of anxiety because I'm like, oh, I kind of want to, but I don't know. I know, so I'm not going to. I'm just going to sit quietly in that awkward silence. And so I was like, you know what? As soon as I heard that, we weren't even in the room sitting down. I thought to myself, I was like, this would be a really good time to share. This would be a really good time to step up and say, hey, I'll speak tonight, because I need to kind of like verbally process through my weekend, running into Patricia. And I was like, I need to do that. So I did that. I was like, hey, he asked. Jeff was chairing the meeting, and he's like, hey, no, does anybody feel compelled to step up and speak tonight? And I immediately was like, I'll do it. I'll speak. And and so I kind of went through basically a lot of the stuff that I just I'm talking about here, just trying to like verbally process it. It was all still so fresh, and what's better than talking about some of the stuff than when you have the attention of like 10 people. So like, yeah, absolutely, I'm going to talk about this. I need to be open, I need to be honest. And I got through my weekend, got to the part where I ran into Patricia, and then when I brought that up, like I got hit with emotion, just like raw emotion, just guilt. That's like what I feel around that situation, is guilt. for the things that I did in that relationship, for the hurt that I caused in that relationship, for the betrayal that I caused in the relationship. Like, my actions in that relationship. Like, I still feel a lot of guilt, and I got hit really hard with emotion. I like started crying, and you know, leading up to this, there was no hinge of that at all. Like, I knew that, obviously I didn't like running into her. I didn't like that, but it happened, and I kind of knew that it was going to happen. And I'm really glad that I asked Jeff and Andy to come. Like, that was great. I had some people there to support me, love me. So yeah, it was just like really interesting, because I was just like, in talking about it, just bam, just kind of hit me. And so, I was kind of thinking about it afterwards, and I don't know. This was probably, oh no, it was in September, because we read step 9, as in, like, September is the 9th month, and that's normally like kind of coincides. Sometimes we'll read that step if it's the book week. And so she had been on my mind recently. Like, I honestly, like, on here, I haven't really talked about her a whole lot. If you go back and listen to, I laugh now, because if you go back and if you listen to like the first year, a little over a year of the podcast, like, that was a lot of what I talked about, because that's what was like the biggest thing that I was going through at the time. Whereas now, with where I'm at, like, do I think about her? Yeah, I do. Do I grieve her sometimes? Do I grieve that relationship? Absolutely, I do. Do I feel guilt around that? Absolutely, I do. But it's not so overbearing, or to the point where I'm like, I want her back. Like, it's more or less just like, she's not here, she's not coming back, and that's okay. That's okay. She's out there living her life. God bless her. God bless her and give her everything that she deserves. And I want her to be happy. That's essentially been my mindset around it. So I haven't really talked about it with my sponsor, because it's not an everyday thing that I deal with. Haven't been talking about it on here, like, just not. But when we talked about step 9, is made amends wherever possible, unless it was going to injure that person or others. So, and that kind of like spurred on some more thoughts around her, right? Because I really do, I feel, so, the first year of my recovery, there was some communication between her and I don't feel like I was truly, like, ever in any of that communication, like, I'm sorry. Now, I may have said it, again, I don't really remember what all was said. I don't have the text threads anymore, so, like, that was another thing that I did, within the last couple months, was just like delete the entire history of the text thread, delete all the pictures that I have of her off my phone. They were in a hidden file anyway, and I didn't look at them, but I still had them. So, like, just deleting and getting rid of those things. Again, just trying to let go of little things here and there, and finally feeling like, okay, I'm ready to do this, even though I didn't go back and look at those texts or try to relive those. Like, I didn't do that, but I was still holding on to them for some reason. And so getting rid of those, I feel really good around that. And so she'd been on my mind a little bit, just a little bit more, just a lot around, the step 9 and amends, right? Like, I owe her that. I owe her an apology. I owe myself forgiveness around that. So I felt really guilty for not making that amends. But also, too, early on in my recovery, I was so rigid. I was very rigid with my recovery, in the sense of, like, okay, yes, I want to say I'm sorry. However, I need to get to step 9 before I can even do that. I need to make sure I'm doing it about the right way. Like, so there was just definitely, like, some rigidity there around, like, just wait. When I also, I laugh now, but I also had some ideas of, like, maybe she will come back, which, is not the case, and that's not what I'm holding on to. I'm very much, looking forward to starting a life with somebody else and building a partnership and building like a loving, lasting relationship with somebody else that's not her. And like, I want that. I really want that. So, this thought, around step 9 and then running into her, I'm like, okay, deleting the text, deleting the pictures, like just okay. I think I'm ready to start my amends letter to her. And and then I was like, okay. Now I'll be honest, like, so that happened. I ran into her on Saturday. I shared Saturday night. Sunday and Monday were tough, really, really tough. Like, I just wanted to escape. I wanted to get out. I just was not. I was very uncomfortable. Like, now, granted, this was, yes, it had to do with that, but it also had to do with, all this other stuff. Feeling overwhelmed with school. That's a whole other thing. Not that I'm feeling like super overwhelmed by school. I'm struggling with motivation to be in school right now. I feel like it's really eating into my self-care time. I don't feel like I'm learning anything groundbreaking or revolutionary. It's good though. I am learning. It's just I'm struggling with that motivation. Do I even want to do this? Like I'm really questioning what I'm doing with it and how it fits into my life right now. So, but that's a whole other topic that I can get into later. Um, so I was talking to my CSAT on Monday this last week, and I brought this up to her, the amends letter, and she made a really good point. She was like, "What are you holding on to? Seems like you're still holding on. What are you holding on to?" But it wasn't. I didn't take it the wrong way. I wasn't like, I totally heard her, and was like, yeah, no, you know what I'm holding on to? I'm holding on to the guilt. I'm holding on to the guilt that I feel with the hurt that I caused in that relationship. I have not forgiven myself. I don't know how to forgive myself. I know that comes with time for sure. But yeah, I'm holding on to the guilt. And for me, guilt is something that can fairly easily put me into my inner circle, like very quickly. So definitely like holding on to guilt. And also too, a couple days after that, I was kind of reflecting on it, thinking about it, and realizing that, for a very long time, up until even, just recently, there's been this, okay, well, I do want to make amends. I do want to say I'm sorry. I want to take full responsibility for my actions, and this was all me. This was my fault. Like, I made the decisions. There's nothing that you could do or nothing that you did. Like, this is all on me. This was my stuff. This is on me. I messed up. I am sorry. I wanted to do that face to face. Right? I had that expectation, right? And here's where I can get in trouble with expectations is subconsciously I've been holding on to that. And that a letter was out of the question because I wanted to do it face to face. I was dead set on doing it face to face. Well, I'm not getting that opportunity. And that's okay. That is okay. There are other ways to go about it. And I think that it was very grandiose of me to think that, and again, I really got to look at what are my motivations behind that expectation. Could I, what's the motivation there? And that there's always underlying subconscious motivations that drive me to do the things that I do. And I need to be really aware and call myself out on my own bullshit, because I can easily bullshit myself. And so that was something else I was holding on to. And so, my CSAT was like, yeah, okay, yeah, like you're holding on to stuff. She was like, I think that there could be some freedom for you, some freedom to open you up to, a new relationship. Because that was also something too, like, that I was kind of thinking about, was like, how awkward would that be if I got into a relationship and I was like, oh, hey, by the way, I need to write an amends letter to my ex. Like, you cool with that? So, and so I'm like, okay, you know what, God, like, the signs, I truly believe that like the signs are pointing me to, hey, I think it's time to get this process started. So I've got time. I'm gonna carve out time this weekend to just get the rough draft started. Right, like basically that means for me just sitting down and just writing, like and knowing that whatever I write down, and this is where I struggle sometimes is like the first draft doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not gonna send the first few drafts, right? Like I'm going to write stuff. I'm going to then go back through, whittle that down even more, have multiple people read this, and then make even more changes to it. So like there's a whole process to it. And I don't know, this is my first time. So like I need to give myself some grace and compassion around this and just allow myself a rough draft. So that's like part of what I'm going to do is like I am going to take time this weekend to actually sit down and just write thoughts. Just write, right? Like so many people ask me all the time, like, how do you journal? Where do you start? I don't know where to start. Well, if you want to start journaling, just start writing. That's really all you have to do. And another thing I do is write how you're feeling, right? Like what are you feeling? Write about that. And the rest will just kind of work itself out. Like it's kind of like I totally understand how it can be complicated, but it's just that simple of just writing. So that's like the approach that I'm going to take is just like I'm just going to start writing. And it's been a while since I've journaled. I actually kind of got back into it a little bit this week, but I'm just going to start writing. That's the plan. And you know what I found this week? I looked up some examples online. I've asked my sponsor to give me his amends letters so I can get, I want to collect data and I just want to kind of get an idea. I have an idea of what it kind of looks like. However, I don't know fully, what the final result is going to be. I'm not there yet. And that is totally okay. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens. We'll see what this brings up. But I gotta tell you though, like on one hand, I'm kind of excited about it. I'm kind of excited. I truly believe that there will be some kind of freedom for me on the other side of this. Now, by no means am I looking at this like this is a red pill or a blue pill. Like as soon as I take this action and put that letter in the mail, that I'm cured. I'm good. I've forgiven myself. I don't feel any guilt anymore. Like, I'm not saying that at all because I truly don't believe that, right? Like, I don't believe just like throwing a tool at my anxiety that is just going to instantly fix that for me. I don't believe that. However, I think that it'll start that process for me. Knowing that, like, being able to hang my hat on, hey, I said I was going to write her a letter telling her how sorry I was and taking full responsibility for my actions, and I did that. And I did that to the best of my ability, and I had other people check it. I'm good. My side of the street, is clean. And so that's I'm kind of excited because I really truly do think that there's going to be some freedom on the other side of this for me. And like I'm actually like I'm looking forward to it. I don't think that I was ready. It took me this long. It took me 2.5 years in recovery, working on myself to get to the point where like I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready to start this process. I truly think I'm ready. And again, I don't know how long the process is going to take. It could take 3 weeks. It could take 2 months. It could take 3 months. I don't know. And I don't want to put a time on it necessarily. Like, I'm basically what I've done this week is I've been talking about it. I've been praying about it. And I'm going to continue to do those things. And that's all that I can do. Continue to ask for guidance from my higher power and seek wisdom and ears of people that are close to me and I trust the most. That's where we start. And that's exactly where I'm at right now. And again, I truly believe that it's now time for me to start that process. So I'm going to start that process. I'm definitely going to keep you guys updated on all of that. And let me know, like, if you've ever written an amends letter. I want to hear about it. I want to hear about your experience. Shoot me an email. Let me know, how it went for you. What you kind of experienced maybe before, during, and after. Like, I want to hear from you guys. So definitely let me know. Or even too, I know I have some betrayed partners that listen to this, and I want to hear about your experience in getting an amends letter. How was that for you? What did that stir up for you? Like, again, I want to collect data, and I want to hear other people's experiences with this, because I also, I really want to take into effect, like, I want to take in, what potential, feelings this could bring up for her. So again, and feel free, guys, shoot me an email, nolionshere@gmail.com. Again, that's nolionshere@gmail.com. Let me know what your experience is with your amends, with whether it be, writing an amends letter and actually giving it to somebody, or being on the receiving end of an amends letter. This is my first amends out of many that I need to make, and I want this to be the first one that I do. Because, again, this has been weighing on me for a very long time. I mean, since I got into recovery, since I got discovered, like, it's really been... It's always floating around in the back of my head, so I definitely want to, again, get your experience. I want to hear what other people's experiences are with this. And, also, while we're on that note, I totally off topic, though, I have this idea, and I got to give credit to Jeff. This was kind of Jeff's idea, was, I want more engagement from the listeners. So what I want to do is I want to get a cookie jar in here that has just topics, whether that be, like gratitude, outer circle, like meditation, prayer, like, anything. And basically, put these ideas in this cookie jar, and then, like, when I have a guest on, or even solo by myself, maybe I'm like, I don't know if I really know what to talk about. Let's go to the cookie jar, and let me pull out a topic, and then, okay, hey, this topic is gratitude. Let me talk about gratitude and what that looks like in my life today, and how I work that into my program and what that means to me. I'm always asking people to send me topics, and I want to know, what do you guys want to hear? And I think that this would be a really good way to get more people engaged, and also just kind of like a fun thing to do on the show, And if you send me a topic, and if you're okay with it, give me your first name and where you're from, and this topic was brought to us by Joe in Idaho. And I think that that'd be a really cool way just to get more people engaged in the show, and just give us another layer of things to talk about. When it comes to recovery, I feel like I could sit here for 4 hours and talk. But due to video size, I'm not going to do that as much as I want to. So yeah, guys, please feel free to reach out. That email, again, is nolionshere@gmail.com. Again, let me hear what you guys got. I want to hear from you guys. Again, let me know about the experience with the amends, whether that be writing the amends or getting the amends letter. And also, too, any topics that you guys want to hear, please feel free to reach out. I love hearing from my listeners, and I want to hear more from you guys. So definitely please reach out. Let's connect. If anybody wants to come on the show, definitely reach out. My doors are always open. So please, hit me up. Reach out. And thank you guys so much, and girls, for the support, for listening to the show week in and week out. Like, I really appreciate it. Like, I love that I have people that listen, and that people that are willing to give me the time to travel with them to work. Be it whatever it is, wherever you listen to. Like, I am just so blown away by the support that I've gotten from all of this. So, guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for joining me on my journey. It means so much to me. I love everybody that listens. Go check out the socials, no_lions_here on YouTube and Instagram. I'm a little bit more active on YouTube, trying to figure out YouTube. I can actually like schedule out my videos. I can spend one day in here and schedule all the videos. Whereas Instagram, I have still not figured that out yet. And also, too, I've been trying to treat Instagram like YouTube, and they're totally different platforms. So eventually I will get more involved in Instagram, but right now everything's kind of focused on YouTube and getting the videos out and up. So definitely go check out the socials. Go give us a like, a subscribe. Thank you guys so much for joining me on my journey. I really appreciate it. Love you guys. I hope everyone has a safe night, weekend, day, whatever it is, whenever you're listening to this. Again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Keep coming back. It works if you work it, and you're worth it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.